Empress Sae Renval slammed her crest ring onto the Tide Court's obsidian dais, the chime echoing through the vaulted chamber like a thunderclap over restless seas. By the hereditary compact of my bloodline and the unyielding allegiance of the Tide Guard fleet, I affirm my rule. Mobilizations at the Vale borders will not fracture this ascendancy. Challenge me at your peril. The assembled nobles shifted in their armored seats, frills flaring along necks and crests in a ripple of barely contained dissent. Hollow projections flickered above the central basin, displaying enemy fleets massing like storm clouds, the neighboring coalitions of Renthar and Keldari, their dreadnoughts probing her outer defenses. Siren's gaze swept the room, pinning each lord and lady, traditionalists with their rigid spines, reformers whispering in shadowed alcoves. Her throne room, carved from living coral-veined stone, thrummed with the salt tang of the undersea vents below, a reminder of the Valketh's watery cradle and her unassailable depth. Marshal Kor Vesk stood at her right, his Tide Guard plate gleaming under the bioluminescent orbs, one clawed hand resting on his shock lance. His eyes, narrow slits of amber, flicked toward the chamber doors as a herald's fanfare pierced the tension. "Your Radiance," Kor murmured, voice a low gravel. The treaty emissary approaches, with the claws. Sirene's frills tightened against her neck. The claws, delivered mere cycles ago via quantum relay from the Galactic Concordance. It was a venomous barb disguised as salvation. To avert total war, she must bind the ascendancy to a human alliance through public matrimony. Refusal meant severed support from fringe allies, inviting secession from her own fractious houses. Her claws dug into the throne's armrests. She would not yield her throne to desperation, but neither would she let border skirmishes ignite into annihilation. The doors parted with a hydraulic hiss, admitting a Concordance drone flanked by two Valketh guards. At its core hovered a sealed plasteel casket, etched with human script. Elias Mercer, designated ceremonial spouse and technical liaison. The drone's vocoder intoned, metallic and indifferent, Empress Sirine Val, per Article 47 of the Vale Accord, this asset fulfills the compulsory, public ratification required within the cycle or allied withdrawal commences. Murmurs erupted like boiling vents. Lord Threxjal rose from the traditionalist benches, his opulent robes swirling, crest fully extended in haughty display. But Siren moved first. She thrust a talon toward the casket. "Then let the union commence. Elias Mercer stands as my consort before this court and the stars beyond. The treaty binds us, all of us." The casket unsealed with a pneumatic sigh, revealing the human within. He stepped forth unhurried, straightening a simple tunic of neutral gray over his lithe frame. No armor, no ostentation. Pale skin, dark hair cropped short, eyes a startling blue that scanned the chamber without flinching. He inclined his head precisely to protocol depth, neither too low nor defiant. "Empress," he said, voice steady through the translation field, carrying an accent like smoothed stone. "Elias Mercer, at your service." The court recoiled subtly, frills inverting, claws scraping stone. A human, primitive soft skins, barely emerged from their cradle world, now thrust into her throne room as husband. Siren felt the weight of their stares, the precarious ledge of her legitimacy, but she held her gaze level, projecting the unyielding calm of her ancestors. This was necessity, not choice. She would wield it. Threxjal's voice sliced through the hush, amplified by his signet amplifier. "Your Radiance, this mockery insults the compact. I, Threxjal of House Virak, present myself as the proper consort, blood of the deep clans, untainted by alien frailty." He gestured grandly, and his allies rose in support, projecting ancient law codes onto the basin. Interspecies Edict 19, Cycle 03, unions beyond the 5 core races, void hereditary mandates. "This Namal cannot legitimize your throne." Shouts swelled, a crest wave of outrage. Kor's lance hummed to life, guards forming a perimeter. Siren's pulse thrummed in her vents, but she raised a hand, silencing them. Threx played his hand boldly as expected. The traditionalist spearhead, his own ambition cloaked in piety. To yield now would embolden secession. To crush him outright risked civil fracture. Her eyes flicked to Mercer, standing silent amid the storm, studying the hollow projections with quiet intensity. "Edict 19 holds weight," she conceded, voice like polished obsidian. "But the Vale Accord supersedes, ratified by Concordance decree. The human serves as liaison, Ceremonial in name, strategic in fact. She signaled the drone. Display the treaty text. The basin ignited with scrolling glyphs, layers of legalese cascading in concordant standard. Rex smirked, his frills pulsing triumph. Examine subclause 1-2, gamma. Radiance. Human integration requires mutual genetic parity certification. Impossible for this specimen. The union dissolves by dawn. Cyrine's crest flared involuntarily, a trap, woven into the fine print. Her legalists had missed it amid the haste. The court leaned forward, sensing blood in the currents. Then Mercer spoke, soft but clear, stepping to the basin's edge without invitation. If I may, Empress. His fingers danced over a projected interface. Human standard, adapting seamlessly to Volketh overlays. He isolated a filament of text, cross-referencing it against the header protocols. Subclause 1-2. Gamma references Parity Edict 7, but that's superseded by Amendment 4.2 from Cycle 112, post-Rinthar incursion. The certification is waived for treaty imperatives. See here, the checksum mismatch. The chamber fell deathly still. Cyrine's legal advisor, Lady Vren, leaned in, her optics whirring. He, the soft-skinned, deciphers our layered code in moments? Mercer shrugged faintly, eye still on the display, pattern in the overrides. Logical, once you trace the ratification chain. No boast, just fact, delivered with the patience of one explaining tide tables to a child. Cyrin suppressed a ripple of unease. Primitive? This human unraveled galactic legalese like frayed netting. Rex frills wilted fractionally, his allies exchanging uneasy vents. Kor's grip tightened on his lance, amber eyes narrowing at Mercer. Not suspicion now, but calculation. Verify, Cyrine commanded, her voice steel over silk. Vren's team swarmed the projection, nodes flashing. Cycles passed in tense silence before Vren bowed low. Confirmed radiance. The human is correct. No parity void. Threx recovered with venom. A fluke. Even if the text holds, he remains unfit. Enough. Cyrine rose, her shadow engulfing the basin. The marriage stands, declared before witnesses. Elias Mercer is my consort. Challenge further, and you challenge the fleet. She turned to Kor. Marshal, confine the consort to palace custody under your personal watch. No freedoms until I deem him secure. Kor saluted crisply. As you command, Radiance. His gaze lingered on Mercer, assessing as guards closed in. Mercer met her eyes without protest, inclining his head again. Understood, Empress. I'll cooperate fully. Threx bowed with exaggerated grace, retreating to his benches, but Cyrine caught the flicker of his claws, plots already coiling. The court dispersed in murmurs, the hollow fleet still looming overhead. Victory, but brittle. This human had spotted the snare she nearly drowned in, yet trust was a luxury her throne could not afford. Control first, always. As Kor escorted Mercer away, the marshal leaned close to her ear. He sees too much, Radiance. A risk, or a weapon, she replied, watching the human's steady stride vanish into the corridors. Her frills settled, but doubt lingered like deep current chill. The treaty's fine print hid more than one blade. What else had the stars demanded she wed? In the quiet aftermath, a junior herald approached, data slate trembling. Radiance. Subclause 1-9. Delta just decrypted from the relay. It mandates shared command protocols during crisis. The consort must access Tideguard networks immediately. Cyrine's crest snapped full. The first challenge embedded deep. Hand reins to an outsider before the court could even exhale. Cyrine's crest locked rigid, spines fully erect as she extended her primary claws toward Elias Mercer, the human consort compelled by treaty into her orbit. The grand hall of the Tide Palace thrummed with the low chant of assembled nobles, their scales shimmering under the vaulted crystal dome that mimicked the endless ocean depths of Volketh Prime. By the compact of ascendancy, she intoned, voice carrying the honed edge of command. I bind this union not as weakness, but as the forge of our readiness. Witness, Elias stood unmoving before her dais, his compact frame clad in the ceremonial weave of vol silk, ill-fitting yet born without flinch. His pale eyes met hers directly, no deference beyond the ritual bow, and he placed his bare hand atop her scaled one. The contact sent a faint ripple through her sensory pits, registering the alien warmth, the steady pulse too rapid for Vol physiology. No tremor betrayed him, though the court's murmurs swelled like gathering surf. She withdrew first, claws retracting with deliberate grace, signaling the rite's completion. Publicly sealed, privately, a chain she controlled. "Consort," she said low, for his ears amid the fading chants. "Your role ends at spectacle. You advise on treaty metrics alone, no deeper entanglement. The palace yields nothing more." Her gaze pinned him, crest subtly flattening to underscore the boundary. Elias inclined his head, expression neutral as void space. "Understood, Empress. Compliance verification requires network access. May I proceed?" Marshal Corvesk shifted at her flank, his bulk-armored form casting a shadow over the dais edge. Tideguard pauldrons gleamed with fresh polish, but his jaw vents hissed a warning note. "D-died," Cor rumbled. Voice gravel over hull plating. Human access risks cascade failure. "Hardliners in the third wave block petition me this dawn. Your presence already strains shield protocols." Siren noted the pressure in his stance, the subtle lean toward Threx Jail's enclave across the hall. The Lord Consort candidate lounged amid traditionalist banners, his gilt crest arched in smug anticipation. Elias did not argue, merely nodded. "Protocol noted, Marshal. I'll prepare a manual audit." His fingers twitched toward a slim data slate at his belt. Human tech. Jury-rigged to interface with Vol ports. Siren's pits registered no defiance, only focus, irritatingly composed. The rite dispersed the court into side chambers for the feast, but she lingered, gesturing Cor closer. "Watch him ceaselessly. If he proves more than ornament, we adapt. If less, Threx claims his prize." The logistics grid hummed beneath the feast's orchestration, unseen veins pulsing data to sustain the palace's tideguard readiness. Shield emitters, fleet relays, treaty compliance beacons. Siren savored the spiced kelp broth at the high table, her secondary claws tapping rhythm in sync with the chamber orchestra's wave drums. When the first tremor hit, lights flickered. A noble's servo drone sputtered midair, crashing into a crystal flagon with a resonant shatter. Gasps rippled outward as hollow displays stuttered, projecting fractured fleet manifests instead of the Union's honor rolls. Cor surged to his feet, gauntlets slamming his comm. "Grid breach!" Logistics cascade, shields dropping to 60%. "Empress, evacuate!" Alarms wailed, low and urgent, the dome's ocean projection fracturing into static voids. Nobles clutched crests, vents flaring in panic. Threx jowl rose with theatrical calm, his voice cutting through. "See the frailty. An outsider's touch corrupts our core before the ink dries." Siren's crest snapped to battle spike, slamming her goblet down as she rose. "Silence the breach, Marshal, now." Her mind raced, timed for maximum humiliation, violating treaty readiness clauses that demanded flawless palace integrity. War coalitions watched. One flicker, and her mandate cracked. Cor barked orders, his tech adept scrambling at auxiliary consoles, but error cascades multiplied, logistics nodes offline, shield projections dipping to 40. Elias moved without command, slipping past a frozen attendant to the nearest access panel beneath the high table. He pried it open with a multi-tool from his belt, fingers flying across his slate's interface. Siren watched, torn between outrage and calculation. Had he orchestrated this? His brow furrowed, eyes darting between slate readouts and the panel's glowing conduits. "Intrusion vector from sublevel 14, he murmured, voice steady amid chaos. "Rerouting through auxiliary buffers. Isolating now." Cor loomed over him, claw hovering near Elias's shoulder. "Step back, human. This is Vol code." But Elias didn't flinch, twisting a bypass shunt with practiced twists while his other hand patched a query into the slate. Lines of alien script scrolled mingled with human heuristics. He muttered under breath, connecting patterns Cor's adepts chased blindly. Echo pattern matches last quarter's drill logs. False flag embed, purging. The grid stuttered, then stabilized. Lights steadied, hollow displays reformed, shields climbing to 80-5%. Nobles exhaled in ragged unison, crests easing from full flare. Cor's vents cycled hot, staring at the panel as if it had betrayed him. How? Our sweeps cleared that node an hour past. "Luck," Siren declared, voice slicing the hush before Elias could respond. She stepped forward, crest held imperious, positioning herself between consort and court. Coincidence in the humans fumbling. Summon the probe teams. Full counter-sabotage sweep. Root the vermin. Her pits caught Elias's flicker of something. Resignation? As he sealed the panel and stepped back, slate dimming. No boast, no claim. Marshal Kor hauled him upright by the collar weave, but Sciarin's gesture halted it. Enough. He remains under eye. The council chamber convened in the rite's aftermath, vaulted walls pulsing with bioluminescent tides that mirrored the nobles' agitation. Bloc leaders arrayed in semicircle, third-wave traditionalists clustered behind Threx Jow, their crests aggressively arched. The pragmatic second crest moderates wavered, vents hissing debate. Sciarin claimed the apex throne. Elias positioned at her flank like a shadowed statue. Kor's bulk between them. Rex struck first, rising with the data crystal clutched in jeweled claws. Empress. The breach proves contamination. Treaty consort accesses our veins. Logs show his slate pinged the grid moments prior. Annul this farce. Invoke the ancient rites. I stand ready as proper consort. Blood of the first tide. Murmurs swelled. Hardliners vented approval. Crests sinking in wave. Lady Vren of the moderates countered, her spine subtly lowered. Logs also show his shunt stabilized us. Shields held. Treaty clauses intact. Dismiss him. And war declarations cascade by dawn. Stabilization? Drek sneered, projecting the crystal's hollow. Fragmented timestamps, Elias's slate signature amid the chaos, or the thief covering tracks. Hardliners demand audit. Expel the human. Sciarin let the split simmer, her crest a mask of unyielding calm. Privately, the breach nod, too precise, echoing Threx's block rhetoric. Elias stood silent, gaze tracing council crests, reading subtexts her own kin missed. The twitch of vents betraying feigned outrage, the moderated lean toward stability. Kor shifted, his suspicion warring with the undeniable grid logs now scrubbed clean. Petition noted, Lord Threx. Saya Rinza ruled at last, voice resonant as deep current. But annulment risks the compact's collapse. The consort remains. A liability I can see. Marshal. Grant him conditional port access. Read-only diagnostics, under dual oversight. Prove his utility or his threat. Threx crest flared crimson outrage, claws raking air. Madness. You hand reins to an outsider, before the court could even exhale. Kor's jaw tightened, but he saluted crisply, dragging Elias toward the secure vaults without protest. Moderates nodded wary approval. Traditionalists seethed, but none challenged her decree outright. As the council dissolved into side parleys, Sciarin caught Elias's parting glance, patient, unbowed. Her pits registered the court's fracture lines deepening, Threx's faction coiling for deeper strikes. The human had bought her time, witting her no. Dismiss it as coincidence? Perhaps. But necessity coiled tighter than suspicion. One sabotage had elevated decoration to suspect, and shield. She would wield both until the tide turned. Sciarin's crest flared as she strode from the council chamber, her tide guard flanking her like living shadows. Summon the human consort to the relay antechamber, she commanded Kor, voice a silken blade. He will inspect the treaty station under your watch. Document every step. If he falters, we have our proof for Threx's bid. Kor's mandibles clicked in affirmation, his armored form pivoting without hesitation. Empress, the risks. Contain them. She did not slow, her pits sensing the marshal's unease like a sour tide. Threx's annulment motion loomed, ancient law twisted to paint her treaty as folly. Let the human prove ornamental. His success at the last outage would crumble under scrutiny. Minutes later, in the relay antechamber's humming vault, Elias Mercer stood before the sealed bulkhead, his plain human tunic stark against the iridescent Valketh alloys. No adornments, no deference beyond a precise bow. Sciarin observed from the oversight dais, Kor at her side, a squad of guards arrayed below. Consort Elias, she intoned, amplifiers carrying her words like imperial decree. The treaty relay demands verification post-incident. Proceed. Marshal Kor oversees. Elias nodded once, eyes scanning the access panel with that infuriating calm. Understood, Empress. Full diagnostic? Thorough? Kor growled, his voice gravel through the translator. No deviations. The human palmed the seal and the bulkhead hissed open to the relay core, a cavern of pulsing conduits. quantum buffers glowing like captive nebulae. Elias moved inside, toolkit slung low, fingers dancing over interfaces with fluid precision. Sciren's pits tightened. Humans fatigued after cycles of focus, or so the archives claimed. Yet he juggled 3 streams, buffer logs on one slate, flux readings on another, vocal queries to the station AI threading between. Core leaned in, optics narrowing. He multitasks like a drone swarm, unsettling. Efficiency, Marshal, or slight. She watched Elias pause, brow furrowing. Not fatigue, but intent. His voice cut through the hum. Relay, cross-reference outage logs against baseline harmonics. Flag repeats. The AI chimed assent. Hollow displays bloomed, jagged spikes, identical in pattern, buried in auxiliary feeds. Elias traced one, then another. These aren't random. Cycle, prime harmonic deviation, followed by micro-lag in the treaty sync. Repeats every 47.2 cycles. Insider staging. Mimics overload to invoke Clause 19. Incompetent stewardship. Trader's legitimacy review if unresolved. Sciren's spines prickled. Clause 19. An archaic failsafe, meant for derelict rulers, now Threx's favored cudgel. How had her engineers missed the pattern? Core's mandibles parted in a hiss. Impossible. Our sweeps cleared it. Not impossible, Elias said mildly, not looking up. Patterns nested in redundant logs. Low priority. Overlooked in cascade dumps. Human audit protocols flagged them standard. He straightened, slate in hand. Recommend isolating the auxiliary router. Sourced the leak without alerting the saboteur. Core's crest flattened, doubt warring with protocol. Siren felt the chamber's air thicken. Harmless ornament? This bordered on accusation. Before she could speak, Core signaled his squad. Alarms blared. Crimson strobes. Bulkhead ceiling. Security drill. Intruder vector. Simulate breach. Guards snapped to positions. Pulse lances humming. Elias froze mid-step, then pivoted, eyes sweeping conduits. Core's test. Expose the human's fragility under pressure. Volketh endured shocks through chitin layering. Soft-skinned primates crumpled, but Elias dropped low, scanning seams. Concealed access. There. He pointed to a maintenance grate, barely a seam in the alloy weave. Thermal ghost. Recent use. Bypasses primary shields via service crawl space. Your sweeps miss it because it's keyed to biorhythms, not standard patrol grids. Core barked a command. A guard pried the grate. Inside. Fresh scuff marks. A discarded flux tamper. The marshal's pits vented steam. Shock, unfeigned. How? Our grids cover every vector. Bio-keyed, Elias explained, rising dust from his knees. Patterns human security drills for aliens. Assume uniform scans. He met Core's gaze steadily. Patch it with a rhythm randomizer. I can fab one from spares. The drill ended with a chime. Core stared, mandibles slack, then nodded curtly. Provisional clearance. Empress? Sciren's mind raced. Pattern recognition across logs, multitasking diagnostics. Now this improvisation. Her pits registered Core's shift. Suspicion cracking toward assessment. She descended the dais. Seal the relay. Consort, report to chambers. We reconvene. As Elias bowed and withdrew, Core murmured, he saw what we did not. Luck? Thrice now. She replied, voice low. Tested further. The court reconvened at dusk cycle, Threx Jal at its fore, his noble cohort a wall of crested finery. Empress, he boomed, hollow slate projecting the relay logs, sanitized, of course. The consort's inspection yields anomalies unverified by Tideguard. He oversteps. Vote. Strip his clearances. Install a Volketh candidate. Myself, for succession purity. The law demands it. Murmurs rippled, traditionalists' crests rising. Siren felt the tide pull. Her compact fraying neighbor coalition scenting weakness. Threx's eyes gleamed. Victory coiled. She raised a primary claw, amplifier silencing the chamber. Demotion is noted, but evidence mounts against sabotage, not incompetence. The consort remains. Threx surged forward. He is alien taint. Clause 19. Invoked by failures he unmasks. Her voice cracked like thunder. Propriety straining. Pitts flared at his audacity. Denied. Session ends. As the court dissolved into fractious whispers, Threx's glare bored into her. She ignored it, signaling core. Deep scanned his origins, sealed files. Human networks. Alone in her sanctum, Siren paced the tide mosaic floors, the relay report glowing before her. Elias's findings gnawed. Repeats, vectors, Klaus 19 bait. Threx pushed too boldly. An insider fed him confidence. Core's report arrived via secure burst. Human credentials unsealed by her overrides. Elias Mercer, not mere diplomat. Elite counter-sabotage cadre. TerraSec Black Band. Trained in pattern disruption, crisis mapping, interspecies psyops. Sealed for diplomatic sensitivity, dozens of ops. Averted collapses in neutral zones, unraveled multi-species webs. Her spine sagged. Inferior flesh, this was precision forged. Archives lied, or lagged centuries behind human evolution. Endurance in audits, adaptability to their tech, creativity in the great, a pattern, not luck. She summoned Elias via private channel. He entered without flourish, standing before her throne days. No triumph in his posture, only readiness. Consort, she said, voice measured, formality a thin veil over intrigue. Your credentials intrigue. Black Band. You conceal depths. Per protocol, Empress. His tone even, eyes meeting hers without challenge. Duty, not deception. She leaned forward, Pitts reading his steady pulse. No bravado, mere fact. Threx coils. The anomalies point inward. Map the conspiracy, quietly. Prove the pattern, or fall with it. Elias inclined his head. I'll need access to court logs, bioscans. Cross-domain. Granted. Risky. Political cost if exposed. But the treaty held on this thread. Why aid so deeply? You are bound, not enthralled. He paused. A human flicker. Thought, not evasion. Alliance means survival. Yours, mine. Patterns connect us. As he departed, Siren's crest settled. What she had dismissed as luck wove into form. Foresight, resilience, bonds forged in crisis. Threx struck blind. This human saw tides she had missed. Necessity, no capability. And in its light her assumptions cracked, revealing not ornament, but anchor. The pattern demanded watching. Lord Threx jowl rose from the shadowed tier of the Grand Tribunal, his frilled crest flaring like a venomous ruff as he unfurled the ancient scroll. By the dueling statute of the third tide, Empress Siren. The consort's legitimacy demands trial. This human trinket, Elias Mercer, must prove worth beyond ornament, or the ascendancy fractures under illegitimate bond. Siren's throne loomed at the chamber's apex, its pearl-inlaid arms cool against her scaled palms. The air hummed with the tribunal's tension, holographic seals flickering above noble houses' delegates, their eyes, slitted, multifaceted, unblinking. Fixed on her. Threx's gambit was transparent. Invoke archaic law to force a public humiliation. Rally hardliners, paint her treaty as folly. She could deny it. Risk coup whispers swelling into roar. Or authorize, control the field. Her gaze flicked to Elias, standing rigid at her right, human frame unyielding in the formal Volketh robes that draped him like ill-fitted sails. No tremor in his stance, no plea in those steady blue eyes. Proceed, she intoned. Voice a silken blade. Under my terms, the trial simulates shield wall breach protocols. Success grants sanction. Failure invites review. Contingencies coiled in her mind. Marshal Corps' extraction teams poised. Threx's allies mapped for swift cull if Elias faltered. She would not lose the throne to this farce. The chamber's vast dome parted with a resonant grind, admitting the crimson glare of Volprime's primary. Hollow grids ignited across the floor, projecting a mock palace bastion. Towering energy barriers, patrol drones whirring in formation, intruder signatures pulsing red. Elias stepped forward without command, interfacing his gauntlet with the central node. Parameters locked, his translator hummed. Calm as a tide pool, nobles murmured. Threx's crest twitched in anticipation. Siren watched, crest half raised as the trial commenced. Elias moved with economical grace, palms dancing over projected consoles, rerouting drone paths while scanning for fabricated weak points. Hardliners leaned forward, Even Kor at her left vented a skeptical hiss through his gill vents. Humans endured, they said, stubborn weeds in void soil, but this? Multitasking shield recalibrations mid-simulation? Improbable. Then, transition phase, barriers dimmed for reinfiltration, standard protocol. Elias paused, head tilting. A human tell, Siren noted, like scenting windshift. Her own sensors prickled. Something off. The hollow intruder signatures flickered, not random but converging on her dais. Real signatures? No. Her tide guard feeds showed clean. A vent grate exploded inward from the undercroft, 30 paces out. Ninite swarm, Threx's signature venom-laced dispersal, iridescent cloud boiling toward her throne. Assassin's ploy, breach disguised as trial flaw. Implicating the consort's access. Gasps rippled. Kor's blade half-drawn. Threx's eyes gleamed. Elias exploded into motion. No charge, no roar, just pivot. Gauntlet slamming a override glyph. Bastion field snapped back prematurely, herding the swarm into a containment vortex he jury-rigged from adjacent drone exhausts. His free hand flicked to a utility pouch, deploying a compact field emitter. Human tech, jury-rigged suppressor that ionized the cloud mid-air, venom particulates sparking harmlessly to ash. He interposed himself between her and the residue plume, breather mask sealing over his face in one fluid pull. The chamber froze. Siren's hearts double-thrummed. Shock, not fear. He'd seen it first. Pattern in the signature's anomaly. Cross-referenced with vent schematics she'd barely registered. Non-lethal precision, systems mastery weaving human improvisation into Volketh grids. Kor lunged past, scanner confirming the breach vector, his vents flaring outrage. Traitor's work? The consort? Stand down, Marshal. Say Rhine rose, crest fully erect, authority crashing like tidal bore. The swarm's core emitter clattered to the floor, etched with house-jal sigils, Threx bolted upright, frills collapsing. Lies. Fabricated. Detain Lord Threx's allies, she commanded, voice echoing off the dome. Full audit of their shield exemptions, the trial concludes. Competence affirmed. Guards surged, iridescent armor clamping noble arms before protests peaked. Elias deactivated his mask, exhaling steadily, eyes scanning her for injury protocols, deferential, yet unbowed. No boast, just readiness. Threx snarled from restraint. This whelp's trickery mocks the statute. But murmurs shifted, delegates' crests dipping in reassessment, Kor's scanner pausing on the emitter's logs. Elias's overrides clean, prescient. Siren descended the dais steps, robes whispering over polished stone. Elias falling in precise steps. The tribunal dispersed under her glare, but victory's aftertaste soured with calculation. Threx's strike had pierced inner cordons, only Elias's vigilance denied it. Publicly, she shielded him, imperial prerogative unbroken. Privately, as they retreated to the sealed audience vault, her mind revised vectors. The vault's doors sealed with a hydraulic sigh, hollow seals blooming toward eavesdroppers. Kor entered last, faceplates retracting to reveal furrowed brow scales. Empress, the human's reflexes, exceeded projections, but risks remain. He interfaced core systems without preclearance. Elias inclined his head, voice even through the translator's chime. Protocol observed, Marshal. Your grids held. I adapted the exhaust cycle, standard human field engineering for swarm neutralizers, combined strengths. Siren turned to him fully, studying the subtle tension in his jaw. The faint sweat glisten humans betrayed under strain. Endurance there, too. No collapse after dual-tasking life-or-death overrides. You anticipated the breach, she said. Not question, but acknowledgement. Formal tones cracked at edges. Curiosity bled through. Pattern mismatch in the signatures, he replied, gesturing to a conjured hollow replay. Trial cycle pseudo-intruders left to right. These vectored dais direct. Cross-checked with undercroft manifests. Vent access granted to JAL retainers pre-trial. Humble recitation, no swagger. Kor vented surprise, rechecking his own logs. Missed. By his flicker, her crest settled, warmth uncoiling in her core vents. Not luck, not ornament, decisive. Trex's blind strike exposed fractures she'd tolerated. Elias bridged them with alien insight, human pattern weaving atop Valketh precision. You will embed in my command loop, she stated, decision crystallizing. Full access. Tide guard feeds, Noble house, audits. We counter the coalition together. Elias met her gaze, nod firm, honored, Empress. Mutual vigilance. Core stiffened. Loyalty warring with protocol. Empress. Hardliners will cry favoritism. They cry regardless. Cyrene's gaze hardened on her marshal. But results. Silence. Document this. The consort's intervention preserved the throne. Research human training regimens. Integrate where viable. Core's vent cycled submission. A new respect glinting in his eyes. Grudging, but genuine. As Elias synced his gauntlet to her central nexus, Rhine felt the shift settle. Assumptions cracked wider. This human, thrust into gilded cage, proved anchor amid storms. Threx's humiliation fueled purges. Elias's feat bought legitimacy. Personal connection stirred. Not affection, yet, but alliance forged in shared peril. She would wield it. Outside, tribunal echoes faded, but whispers spread. The trial meant to shatter the human bond had bound it tighter. Elias Mercer saved the Empress before all lives, turning scorn to awe, and in the vaults of power, tides turned. Hours later, in the dim glow of her private stratagem, Cyrene reviewed the breach forensics alone. Elias had withdrawn to quarters, polite deference, leaving her to process. The hollow replay looped, his hands blurring across interfaces, mind juggling drone vectors, swarm physics, her position. Humans multitasked thus, adapted mid-crisis, without rote drills. Core's preliminary report pinged, queries dispatched to human archives, endurance thresholds, neural patterning. Her claw traced the emitter's sigil. Threx rotted in cells, allies unraveling under audit. Coalition spies would probe harder now, but with Elias embedded, balance tipped, strength maintained. Not through isolation, but unlikely pact. Optimism grounded in proof. Human capability, woven with hers, quelled war's shadow. She summoned him via Consort Mercer. Report to Strategium. We plan the next tide. Affirmative, his voice returned, steady as ever. The pattern demanded not just watching, but partnership. Cyrene's crest flared as she thrust the data crystal across the obsidian table, its glow illuminating the stony faces of her inner council. This is no isolated sabotage, she declared, her voice a whip crack in the vaulted chamber. Lord Threx's agents have pierced the treaty vaults. Evidence links them to the Prohibition's invocation clause, a plot to unmake my marriage and shatter the alliance before the ink dries. Marshal Corvask leaned forward, his armored scales rasping, eyes narrowing at the crystal's projections, forged edicts mimicking the ancient law's script. Whispers of human dominance seeded in noble channels. Empress, the Prohibition predates our ascendancy. It voids unions where one species eclipses the other's sovereignty. If they prove Elias Mercer commands you, they will not. Cyrene's gaze swept the room, pinning each advisor. Whispers of resignation already stirred. 2 houses had signaled withdrawal from the fleet levy. Propaganda flooded the data nets. The tide's daughter bends to primate whispers. She straightened, her mantle rippling like deep currents. Summon the consort. He enters these sessions now. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Lord Virile, elder of the Deephold faction, rose with a hiss. Restricted counsel is sacred blood oath. A human taints. Your resignation is noted. Cyrene cut in, her tone silk over steel. Virile stormed out, the doors sealing with a resonant thud. 2 more followed, their departure a coordinated fracture. Cora's mandibles clicked in disapproval, but he obeyed, signaling the guards. Elias arrived minutes later, his human frame unyielding in the Valketh diplomatic weave suit, eyes scanning the projections without a flinch, no deference beyond protocol's nod. He took the seat Cyrene indicated, fingers already tracing the crystal's interfaces. From her vantage she watched him, patient, uncomplaining, as if unraveling imperial intrigues were mere maintenance on some Earth vessel. Consort, she began. Formality a shield, the Prohibition looms. Threx invokes it to claim I yield sovereignty to you. Evidence suggests wider hands. Rival empires stoking this to collapse our treaty. Elias absorbed the hollow weave, his brow furrowing in that subtle human way, pattern recognition flickering behind steady eyes. He didn't interrupt, didn't posture. Instead, he queried softly, the clauses test? Non-dominance requires mutual elevation, yes? No single will overrides. Core snorted. Human legalese won't rewrite our ancients. But Elias leaned in, multitasking across the crystal's layers, cross-referencing treaty subtexts, prohibition precedents, even noble house charters. It can adapt, he said, voice even, a mutual oath addendum. Reclassify the Union as a bilateral command compact. Each swears fealty to the other's strengths. No dominance.
You command fleets and law, I, systems and diplomacy.
It satisfies the test without annulling the marriage. Siren's frills twitched, surprise coiling unbidden. Legal engineering, he called it. Humans twisted words like vines, creative where Valkith law carved stone. Kor's scales paled. He probed the proposal, mandibles grinding. Other empires will cry interference. The response came swifter than tides. As the council dispersed, envoys' missives flooded in. The neighboring Thalvor Concord threatened sanctions, their fleet shadows edging closer. The Cathari enclave vowed intervention if the compact mocked sacred prohibitions. Whispers escalated, ascendancy trade routes pinched, levies faltered. One misstep, and her throne's legitimacy cracked like reef shell. By dusk, Sciorion summoned Elias alone to the Risk Sanctum, a chamber of mirrored currents where deceptions reflected back. No guards. Kor waited outside, his suspicion a palpable weight. She activated the optic seal, the walls shimmering into privacy. We review risks now. Species differences, public gaze. Speak plainly, consort. No ceremony. Elias met her gaze, unblinking, settling into the floater chair with economical grace. He'd endured the day's gauntlet without fatigue, juggling council barbs while decoding archives her aides flagged hours ago. Optics first, he said, projecting a sim model. Valkith crowds, noble feeds, interstellar nets. Your houses see me as intruder. The addendum frames me as partner. Public oath-sharing shows balance. But aliens beyond, they'll test for weakness. Thalvor expects Val rigidity. We improvise mutual command. They balk. She circled the projection, frills half unfurled in assessment. His analysis pierced subtexts her counsel missed. Emotional currents in propaganda spins, patterns linking Threx's moves to enclave funding. And our differences? Valketh bond through crest harmony. Humans? Scattershot alliances? A faint smile tugged his lips, not mocking. Pack bonding, we call it. Flexible. I read your court's tensions. Threx's faction pushes purity to mask their levy shortfalls. You've held firm, Empress, against odds I'd crumble under. Humble deflection, yet his resilience shone. Optimism amid the storm, no arrogance in naming her strengths. Siren paused, formality fracturing. His words bridged gaps. Her fleet command's unyielding precision met his adaptability. A collaboration, unforced. You propose exposing us both. Public presentation risks Threx's violence. Risks alliance collapse more, he countered. Eyes steady. We've multitasked this far. Your law. My systems. Together it holds. Heat stirred in her core vents. Pragmatic intimacy blooming. Not subservience but parity. His endurance matching her resolve. Creativity complementing her tradition. Kor's earlier report echoed. The human had worked through the night prior, uncomplaining, forging data links her engineers wrote followed. Alien amazement crept in. Even he, once dismissive, now researched human histories in quiet shifts. She vented a low chime. Decision crystallizing. We present the addendum at dawn assembly. Full court. Envoys witnessed. I challenge the prohibition's weapon form. Reclaim it as shield. Elias nodded. No triumph, just shared resolve. Bilateral. Your lead. Dawn broke with thunderous drums. The grand dais thronged by nobles, envoys, and holocasts, spanning the ascendancy. Threx Jal stood foremost among traditionalists, his bulk radiating smug anticipation, propaganda banners fluttering purity or peril. Kor flanked Siren, mandibles tight, while Elias stood at her right, equal height in weave mantles, no consort's bow. She ascended, crest fully flared, voice booming through amplifiers. The ancient prohibition guards sovereignty. Today, we honor it anew, not as blade against alliance, but oath of balance. Projections bloomed. The mutual addendum, clauses gleaming. I, Sirenval, swear command to Elias Mercer's ingenuity in crisis and diplomacy. He swears to my fleets and law. Murmurs swelled to outrage. Trex surged forward. Blasphemy. A human elevates mutual strength. Elias interjected calmly, his voice cutting clear, laced with translated poise. Test the compact. Invoke the clause if dominance shows. Envoys stiffened. Thalvor's lead hissed threats anew, but eyes widened at the weave. Human pattern spotting had anticipated their sanctions, embedding trade buffers. Core's scales shifted, grudging respect etching his stance. He'd witnessed Elias's overnight sims, juggling variables no Val could without fracture. Sayarin extended her primary claw. Elias clasped it, human grip firm, no tremor. Oaths, sealed in resonant harmony, her crest pulsed, syncing oddly with his steady pulse. Cheers fractured the hall, traditionalists recoiling, but fractures healed. Levies reaffirmed, nets shifting to balance tide. Threx retreated snarling, plot threads fraying. Yet as they withdrew to the sanctum, Sayarin felt the shift. Formal chains to pragmatic bond. Elias's quiet competence, humble yet unyielding, had turned weapon to alliance, partnership, not just demanded, but proven. To keep him, she must wield the oldest law as her own. Sayarin's crest flared as her talon pressed the addendum seal, the compact's glow binding Elias Mercer irrevocably to her throne under the oldest law. The chamber's holographic fleet relays hummed in affirmation, until they didn't. A piercing wail split the Tidegate dais, red emergency strobes slashing across the vaulted obsidian. Stand-down order authenticated, the central relay intoned, its voice a mechanical rasp. All Tideguard vessels to neutral drift. Empress's command authentication revoked for protocol breach. Failed readiness. Her advisors recoiled, frills contracting in shock. Lord Threxjal, poised at the chamber's edge like a shadow given form, allowed a flicker of triumph to crease his scaled muzzle. The fleet rejects an unproven consort, he declared, voice smooth as venom. The treaty voids itself. Your radiance. Step down from this farce before the coalition exploits our paralysis. Siren's gaze locked on the relay's frozen display. 200 Tideguard cruisers, her unbreakable shield, now ghosts adrift in the void. Beyond the gate's viewport, enemy silhouettes massed, Cathari dreadnoughts and their allied swarms, posturing with weapons hot. Threx's coalition had struck first, legal and lethal. Secure the dais, she commanded Marshal Korvesk, her voice steel over silk. Her Tideguard captain snapped to action, his armored frills erecting as squads fanned out. But the strikes came inward now, microdrones swarming from hidden vents, their stingers lancing toward her dais. Elias moved before her guards could fully form. The human consort, her consort, lunged to the auxiliary console, his fingers a blur over the alien interface. No hesitation, no protocol-bound pause. Relay architectures compromised at the quantum layer. He muttered, eyes narrowing on the cascading error logs. They've spoofed the authentication cascade with a recursive loop. Give me override access, Empress. Her talon hovered. Advisors bade protest. He's no fleet engineer. The human will brick the core. Threx's laughter echoed, oily and assured. But the drones closed, one grazing her shoulder guard with a sizzle of plasma. Sayarin slammed her palm to the console. Granted, prove them wrong, Mercer. He didn't look up. Already he'd partitioned the relay into 3 virtual threads, multitasking the purge, rerouting authentication via auxiliary buoys, and isolating the intrusion vector. Humans juggled like that she'd heard in briefings, ordinary to them, impossible to Valketh minds tuned for singular focus. His pattern recognition cut through the code's labyrinth, spotting echoes of Cathari cipher fragments no native scan had flagged. Loop broken, Elias said, calm as docking a shuttle, fleet auth restoring. 90%. Hold the dais. The relays reignited, green cascades flooding the chamber. Tideguard vessels snapped to battle formation, weapons priming with a galaxy-spanning thunder. Threx's frills wilted. His coalition's gambit shattered. But the external threat escalated. Cathari ships surged forward, their prows glowing with invasion prelims. Internal strikes intensified. Loyalists clashed with Threx's infiltrators in the antechambers, plasma bolts scorching the walls. Evacuate the Empress, Kor bellowed, his squad shoving toward her. To the inner sanctum. Sayarin wrenched free, her ceremonial blade unsheathing with a chime. No, we retake the gate. She vaulted the dais railing, leading a wedge of Tideguard into the fray. Drones shattered against her guards' fields, She cleaved two infiltrators mid-leap, her form a whirlwind of imperial precision. Offers to flee rained from her advisor's comms. Safety for authority, tradition whispered. She ignored them. The throne demanded presence, not retreat. Elias flanked her without order, his borrowed pulse rifle steady. He'd patched into the gate's tactical net, mid-stride, relaying fire solutions to her units. Left flank bottleneck, reroute Beta Squad through Vent 3. I've got the relay feeding predictive drifts on the Cathari van. Kor glanced back, mandibles clicking doubt. The human calls shots now? But the Beta Squad's volley gutted an infiltrator squad, proof undeniable. Threx's forces rallied at the gate core, a phalanx of armored traditionalists blocking the command nexus. "Surrender the pretender," their lord roared from the rear, his voice amplified. "The law annuls weakness." Cyrene's loyalists faltered under withering fire. A bolt clipped her thigh plate, pain lancing hot, but she pressed, blade flashing. Elias covered her advance, his rifle barking precise bursts while his offhand synced the counterhack to jam Threx's comms, multitasking again, adapting their rigid protocols on the fly. Then Kor's squad dragged him back. "You're under arrest, human. Security breach. Threx's warrant claims you triggered the stand-down." Siren spun, frills blazing fury. Elias didn't resist, rifle lowering, his face a mask of patient duty. No plea, no arrogance. Just readiness to bear the blame if it shielded her rule. "Stand down, Marshal," she thundered, interposing herself. Her voice cracked the air like thunder. "By the Coronation Compact and its addendum, Elias Mercer is acting co-authority. His override saved the fleet. Arrest him, and you arrest the throne." Kor froze, his frills quivering. Threx howled outrage from across the chamber. Blasphemy. The oldest law binds equals, not primitives. But her words rippled through the ranks. Loyalists surged, inspired. Even doubters hesitated. Sayarin seized the moment, charging the core with Elias at her side. Together, they breached the phalanx, her blade carving paths, his hacks crippling shields. Threx fled as the nexus fell, his personal cipher disk dropping in the rout. Kor retrieved it, mandibles grinding, collusion logs, Cathari codes embedded. "He sold us to the Coalition." Siren sheathed her blade, breath steady despite the ache in her thigh. The gate was hers again, relays pulsing victory. Elias met her gaze, wiping blood, whose, from his cheek. No boast, just a nod. Duty done. But the viewport alarms wailed anew. Cathari fleets locked into formal countdown. Invasion primed, hours ticking. Threx's coup had failed, but it unmasked the storm. A multi-empire war, coalitions converging not just on borders, but her throne's heart. She turned to Elias. The compact's weight now a bridge, not a chain. "Co-authority means we stand together, Mercer. The war they've ignited demands it." His eyes held hers, humble resolve, unbroken. "Then we hold the line. Your lead, Empress." Kor saluted, frills easing into respect. The tide guard follows. As the chamber secured, Siren felt the fracture mend, not in isolation, but alliance. Threx's proof burned in her grip, but the true battle loomed, a war only their partnership could halt. The relays chimed, enemy ETA accelerating. To wield the law fully, she needed more than his competence. She needed his trust, forged in fire. And in that moment, watching him recalibrate the gate's defenses with effortless innovation, she glimpsed the galaxy's oversight. What humans called duty was revolution to the stars, yet the countdown pressed. Partnership alone might not suffice against empires aligned. Word count, 1487. Siren's claws tightened on the armrests of her throne. As Elias's fingers danced across the holographic relay interface, his human eyes narrowed in focus amid the assembled court's murmurs. "Now," she commanded, her voice slicing through the chamber like a tide guard blade. "Transmit the evidence packet, Threx's encrypted orders to the Coalition scouts." Routed through his private vaults. Elias nodded without looking up, his voice steady as he multitasked, partitioning the data burst to evade detection while cross-referencing fleet positions on a secondary pane. Packet secured, relaying through the shadow node you flagged, bypassing their firewalls. Coalition dreadnoughts will see it in real time, tied to Threx's sigil. They'll know he's been playing both sides. The grand hall of the Ascendancy's heart spire hummed with tension, crystal spires refracting the glow of strategy holos into prismatic warnings. Nobles shifted in their tiered seats, frills flaring in unease. Marshal Kor stood rigid at her right, his armored crest plates locked in vigilant alignment. Threx Jal, bound in restraint fields at the chamber's center, snarled through bared fangs. Lies, fabricated by this off-worlder filth. Syarin rose, her imperial mantle swirling like deep-sea currents, and fixed Threx with a gaze that quelled lesser storms. She had coordinated this gambit with Elias through the shadowed hours. Their two-front strike, forged in urgent whispers, exposed the traitor to bind her fracturing court, while reclaiming the interstellar relay to stare down the invading coalition. No more delays. Their armada loomed at the system's edge. Silence, Lord Jal. The Tide Guard has your vaults cracked wide. Your missives promise them our flank in exchange for my throne. Treason. Plain under Compact Article 7. Elias's hands blurred, invoking a cascade of overrides only a human's relentless pattern matching could chain so swiftly. Syarin watched, a flicker of private awe stirring beneath her regal mask. He juggled relay restoration, evidence dispersal, and a faint signal to mask their position, all while murmuring tactical updates to Kor. Humans endured such marathons as mere routine, she'd learned. Elias hadn't flagged fatigue since their vigil began 12 cycles ago. Kor's frills twitched, a subtle tell of his dawning respect, the Marshal's suspicion cracking under proof. Relay core stabilized, Elias announced, leaning back as green conformations bloomed across the primary hollow. Full control ours. Now the gambit. I'm looping a arbitration beacon into their command net. It'll force their flagship into neutral space parley. Verifiable terms. No shots fired. They retreat or face exposure of Threx's double deal as galactic piracy. Threx lunged against his bonds, scales rasping. You dare? The court will never stomach a human's meddling. Syarin silenced him with a gesture, her mind racing through the political currents. The traditionalists would howl. Accepting Elias as co-signatory on the Relay Pact meant defying ancient edicts favoring pure-blood unions. But stability demanded it. The coalition's retreat hinged on this balanced deterrence. No humiliation to breed vengeance. She turned to Elias, their shared glances carrying the weight of nights spent bridging their worlds. His patient explanations of human engineering quirks, her revelations of Falketh naval lore. Kor, signal the fleet to shadow but hold fire. The human complied, his improvisation gleaming, a novel relay pulse that mimicked coalition auth codes while embedding arbitration protocols. Alien tech masters relied on rote hierarchies. Elias connected disparate systems intuitively, adapting midstream as countermeasures flickered. Syarin's pulse quickened. From her dais she saw the holos shift, enemy signatures wavering, then peeling back toward the jump point. No war. No annihilation. Gasps rippled through the court. A cluster of house matriarchs exchanged frill flares of astonishment, their whispers turning to urgent data pulls on human neural plasticity. Kor stepped forward, his voice gravel over steel. Empress, the Tide Guard confirms. Coalition inbound for arbitration. Threx's treason verified across 3 vectors. The consort's solution holds. Threx spat venom. He's a security breach. Annul this farce. Prosecuted, Syarin declared, her tone broking no fracture. She invoked imperial law with deliberate cadence. Article 7's clauses unspooling in holotext. Betrayal of sovereign compact. Forfeiture of titles. Exile to the void reaches. The court watched as restraint fields tightened, Threx's defiance crumbling into hollow snarls. She bore the murmurs of dissent, the cost of naming Elias co-signatory etched in narrowed eyes, but unity coalesced around the victory. Lord Jal is stripped. The Relay Pact bears dual seals, mine and treaty consort Mercer's. Stability first. Kor saluted sharply, crest lowering in formal submission. Tide Guard stands affirmed, Empress. The consort's competence is logged. Fleet compliance secured. His gaze met Elias's, a nod passing, grudging kinship forged in crisis, human endurance meshing with Valketh discipline. The chamber erupted in measured acclaim, frills undulating in waves of reluctant awe. Syarin descended the dais steps, her presence commanding silence as she faced Elias amid the throng. Privately, the cracks in her formality deepened. This human, once a compelled necessity, had become her counterweight. Patient under court barbs, his emotional reeds piercing Valketh stoicism to reveal unspoken fractures. He'd shielded her from a blade meant for her back 2 cycles past, earning loyalty she hadn't sought. "Elias," she said softly. For his ears amid the din, her claw brushing his sleeve in a gesture alien courts rarely witnessed. "You've turned compulsion to compact, but governance demands more than relays." He met her gaze, humble steadiness in his posture. No boast, just quiet resolve. "We define it together, Siren. Boundaries clear. I advise, you command. Responsibilities shared. Your fleets, my systems. Authority mutual where crises demand." Her frills warmed, a rare personal thaw. Romance had crept in unbidden, born of late-night strategy laced with shared vulnerabilities. His homesickness confessed over rationed kelp brews, her fears of succession's abyss, voiced in the throne's shadow. Not surrender but synergy. She remained empress, he her equal in trust. "Agreed, we rule as partners, not halves." The court hushed as she raised her voice, holos blooming with the new decree. "Hear the succession framework. Interspecies heirs protected under bilateral compact. The alliance endures. Codified. Volketh strength. Wed to human ingenuity. Challenges will come. We meet them united." Applause. Swelled. Genuine now. Nobles forwarding queries on human adaptability protocols. Core transmitted fleet-wide affirmations. His earlier doubts archived as lesson. Elias stood at her side, his presence no longer alien intrusion but institutional pillar. As the session dissolved into diplomatic eddies, Siren drew him aside to the alcove's veiled glow. "You were ordinary to them once. Now?" She traced a claw along the relay sigil on his cuff, her voice threading intrigue with warmth. Team effort," he replied, his hand covering hers lightly. "Cross-species touch sealing the shift. Your fleets held the line. I just connected the dots." She leaned closer, formal shell yielding to the bond they'd earned. Born to rule alone, she'd discovered true power in an equal, one who matched her stride without eclipsing it. In the Heartspire's depths, as stars wheeled beyond the crystal vaults, Siren felt the galaxy's currents align. War averted, court-bound, heart entwined. The ascendancy endured, not diminished, but elevated.